So coming to the orders of class Amphibia, the first order of class Amphibia is called Gymnophiona or Apoda. Now the name Apoda itself suggests us that these are amphibians which do not have hands and legs. So they are referred to as the limbless amphibians. They look like a worm, but they are not truly a worm. They are actually amphibians, and they also live in damp soil. Their eyes are very minute, and actually they are blind. They cannot see through their eyes, and that's why it's mentioned here as eyes being functionless. However, surprisingly, their larvae do possess external gills, which is a characteristic feature of class Amphibia. And you will also be surprised to know that they have a very slimy and a wrinkled skin with lot of folds on their skin, and in between the folds you will find embedded or buried scales which are made up of bony plates. So it's like the eye is also kind of buried in the wrinkled skin of the head, and as a result their eyes become very minute and functionless. The example for this order is Ichthyophis. So Ichthyophis is the best example for a limbless amphibian. The second order is the most famous order, to which frogs and toads belong to. It is not frogs and toads, it is salamanders that belong to. So that is Urodela or Chordata. Now Chordata or Urodela are those organisms which possess a tail. So they have a tail, they have a very smooth and slippery skin with absolutely no scales on the body. They also have weak limbs. Some of them have vestigial limbs where limbs are present but they cannot walk with those limbs. They live entirely in water. They are completely aquatic in some forms, but some forms they do live in moist conditions, mostly found in the riverbeds. Okay, they have very small eyes. They have lungs which help in breathing. Of course, you know that amphibians can also breathe through their skin, and they also have gills in their larval condition. The best example is salamander. Okay, now, one of the salamanders, that is called Ambystoma, it has a larva that is called the axolot larva. Surprisingly, in this larva, a phenomenon called neoteny is observed. In neoteny, what happens is the larva becomes sexually mature. Like normally, a larva is supposed to undergo metamorphosis and become an adult and then become sexually mature. But here, the larval metamorphosis gets arrested and it acquires sexually mature traits, and that is, it becomes like a sexually mature adult, or you can consider it as an adult which has some of the larval characters in it. This phenomenon where, see, you can refer to this in two different ways. One is the metamorphosis has become arrested and the larva has become sexually mature, or you can consider it as an adult which has retained its larval characters. This phenomenon is called as neoteny, and the retention of the larval characters in the adult and the fact that the larva can reproduce is referred to as pedogenesis or pedomorphosis. It's as if the larva never underwent metamorphosis. It has become sexually mature and it has started reproducing. This is referred to as pedogenesis. So the retention of the larval traits is neoteny. The fact that such larvae, such adults you can call them, which have retained the larval characteristics, are able to reproduce is referred to as pedogenesis. The third and the major order, that is, I was talking about this order, the most famous order in which frogs and toads belong to. The moment you think of class Amphibia, these are the organisms that pop up in your head, that is frogs and toads. So frogs and toads are tailless amphibians. They belong to order Anura or Salientia, and they do not have any scales. They have a slimy skin and they have lot of mucus glands in their skin because they take part in cutaneous respiration. And in adults you will not find gills entirely. In adults the respiration is mostly through lungs. However, in the larval stage, that is in the tadpole stage, you will actually find external gills in them. And another important feature is they have a set of 10 vertebrae in their vertebral column. So these are all the examples and the orders that you have to remember. Okay, so three major orders that we just discussed in class Amphibia.